All right, and we are live. Hello, guys. Good morning. Well, my name is Ernest, and today I just felt a knack of taking you through my code. This code I wrote in Java. It was way back in February, 2016. So what happened today was I was taking my mathematics quizzes and tests online, and give me a minute. I'm trying to sip on my coffee. Yeah, sounds good. So what happened today was I was taking quizzes online about mathematics class. So I just happened to realize, hey, I haven't made any video about Java programming in a while. So why not just test it? You know. Besides, I went to buy a microphone, and I wanted to find out how it would test, sound. All right. Okay, so let's jump into it. This, if you look right here, we have a class keeps track of student info.java. So what this class does will keep track of students at college. It includes their names, identification numbers, and grade points. So the class name is keeps track of student information. So for you guys out there who haven't really experienced object-oriented programming, well, there's this thing that it's a trend. I would say you have to keep your code organized in classes, and those classes actually contains objects. So those objects, just imagine you have a house, right, as a class, as a whole thing. So in the house, you have a lot of rooms. You have a bathroom, you have a kitchen, you have a living room. So just imagine a house being a class, and inside the house you have like rooms, or you could picture it in this way, like inside the house you have objects like the fridge or stove or other like TV set and stuff like that. So that's what happens. So in this class contains a variable or variables called I have one string variable called name and one integer variable called ID number, total grades, number of students, grade point average, initial data set. So all these right here are integers and string up here. So what does a string do? I'll try to be so fast. Um, what does a string do? A string actually stores data that is in Word. For example, you have letters, like maybe characters, but in string in Word. I will show you one how to store string into a string variable. And then integer is actually the exactly the way you guessed it. It stores integers. So this is where it's going to be storing those variables. All right, so I have integer ID number, total grades, number of students, grade point average, initial data set. All right, this is the name of the student to fetch. And one good practice of a developer or a software programmer is you have to comment the code. So in case when somebody else comes to review your code, because it's hard for a developer to see problems. So it is a very good practice to give your code to someone else to go through it and make sure that everything flows right. In the world of developing, you have to make sure that the code runs fast sequentially. So you have to make sure that you write the code with comments. The other person or the other developer comes and evaluate your code. So this is where I put a comment, says this is the name of the student to fetch, and then string fetch name. All right, we will need the name of the student. In this case, the class is about keeping track of student information. So this is just like a generic it's not really in a developing world. It's not a generic class, but in the actual world, you would say, well, it's just the blueprint of, like, when you're building a house. You have a plan. Okay, this is where the room is going to be, and this is where the door is going to be. So this is just the frame of the class. So I'm going to have ID numbers, total grades, number of students, grade points, initial data set. And then right here, I put string fetch name scanner in Java for you to get data from a user. Like on a keyboard, you have to instantiate what is called scanner. When I mean instantiate, I mean just this scanner is an inbuilt class, inbuilt class from java.util.scanner. So this is where I'm getting this class from. So scanner scanint is equal to new scanner system.in. So I have two scanners right here because I actually went into a problem when I was running my code. One scanner couldn't capture the integers and strings at the same time. So I solved the problem by instantiating two objects of scanner class. And then right here, this is where the big deal is now. Singly linked list. Oh, I'm sorry, I did not tell you at first that the class is about singly linked list. So I'm sure you will see in the description or on the title. I apologize for that. This is like my second time I'm making a video, and I'm trying to keep up with that. So single linked list, linked is equal to new single linked list. Now you might ask, where is this single linked list class coming from? Well, since Java is a hard-coded programming language, especially, that's what my professor was teaching us, that we in this class, we actually went and made classes ourselves instead of using the inbuilt linked list. From a Java documentation, we actually built our own linked list, our own class, and then use that into our model. So linked list is right here, singly linked list.java. We actually made it. I will take you through it. So, and then here I am instantiating an object from a listing class. So what is this listing class? This listing class, it's a class that I made right here that replicates or that represents a person. For example, in this case, actually, it replicates or presents a student. So the student will have the name, will have the ID number, will have stuff, all the good stuff. So the student stuff, all the variables that I got from the student class, I pulled them right here because I wanted to communicate with, I wanted to capture the information, the values in this class, and then use the listing class here to process the variables and put back into the single linked list, which is now a data structure that will store the classes of listing. All right, man, sound like I'm mumbling. I don't know if it makes sense. If it does make sense, leave me a comment down there and see where it went wrong. Nobody's perfect, and I'm a student, trying to learn these things. Very interesting. So public keeps track. This is a constructor. So what does a constructor do? A constructor in every class actually is executed first. So when an object from a class, for example, when I go into another class and I instantiate an object from this class here, what will be executed in this class will be the constructor. So the constructor will be executed first. So that's why I put list.programmer.name. So where does this programmer.name? This programmer name is a method that it's a programmer name is a method that I made into this list class. As I said way back, I said this is a student class that will be used to be stored as one object in a single linked list. So this is the blueprint of a student. So private string name, we have a student grade point, address, ID number, and public listing. As I said, every class have a constructor. So I happen to have a constructor for this, a public listing, and there's nothing that is put into a constructor here. And then I have another constructor. You can have as many constructor as you want. What matters is as you get experience with programming, you actually know that sometimes if you have to instantiate this class into another class, if you only have one constructor, that requires an overloading. I don't even know where to start from. Overloading. That is another topic that we have to talk about. But if you want to instantiate this class into another class, that requires the constructor from this class requires requires arguments to be overloaded in the constructor. If you don't want to do that, it won't allow you to instantiate that class. That's why I made public string here. That requires me, that does nothing. So I can instantiate this class as an object into another class without requiring me to put methods in the constructor, or vice versa. If I needed to overload this constructor with arguments or perimeters, these are perimeters: string name, int, student grade point, int ID number, or ID num, string address. So if vice versa, if I wanted to instantiate listing object into another class that I want to overload the constructor with details, I would. And if I didn't want to do that, I would, because I have a constructor here. So this is the blueprint, and public string, this is just a requirement that my professor needed. Excuse me. Public listing deep copy, listing clone. This one actually makes a copy of the same class. So when you say public listing deep copy, this is just a name. You give a method, but listing here, it has to match with a class up here. This is listing because you are deriving the model, you are deriving the object from that class. So public listing deep copy. So it will, again, when you say listing, it will actually, it's like duplicating the same listing class into another one which is named deep copy. And in that listing, since now this is very interesting. Since I have two constructors that one doesn't require me to overload it with perimeters, another one requires me to overload with perimeters, it allowed me to go on and instantiate this listing. But if I had only one constructor, that required me to overload that constructor or that object with perimeters, it wouldn't allow me. So I have this duplicate, this method here that stores a new listing. Yeah, so listing clone is equal to new listing, and then I overloaded that. Why did I overload it? Because again here, for every class that you want to instantiate, it has to have a constructor. So this is a constructor and this is a constructor. Again, I feel like I'm going in circles. So of this accepts these parameters, and that's what I used here. And then I put name, student, grade point, ID number, address. Where are these coming from? These are variables that I, made up here. So you see the private string name, private integers, student grade point. Why are they private? Because I'm trying to practice encapsulation. That's in programming world, you have to make data private to private from other classes, because you don't want like in a big organization, you don't want someone else to change or to accidentally call the name from listing, because he will just do listing dot name and then change the name of this variable to something else. And then if this variable is used by a lot of classes, that becomes a problem. So that's why I put the name as private. Okay, so overloaded that name, student, ID number, address, return clone. So since this one is what am I saying? Okay, so since this method here is not voided, it's we didn't put, for example, let's say void. All right, so it gives me an error because there's a return here. If you go back to reading about Java or any other programming language, you will actually see that public, that doesn't have well, every language is different, but in Java, if you don't put void here, it expects this method to return something. So it's returning a clone. So what is clone? Clone is this object right here. All right. So this method compares the target key with the name. So public int compared to string name, return name dot compare to name. So this method here, actually, the method, as I said earlier on, is just like a part, like a process, a function, that does something. It's like magic. You just tell something, go do something this, go do something for me, and it does it for you. So public compared to string name. So again, this one will require a method overload or a parameter of name. So since it doesn't have void here, it will return name don't compare to. All right. So what is this name? Name is actually a variable that I instantiated up here. Okay. So dot compare to is an inbuilt method, and then that passes name here. So when we happen to access since it's public, I will if I happen to access this compare to method in keep tracks of student in here. Okay, since I instantiated listing, list is equal to new listing, and when I say list dot name or dot list dot compare to string, and then it will require me to pass in a name. So okay, now you call this method, and this method requires a parameter. What are you gonna put in there? And it expects a string, not an integer. If you put in 4, it'll probably give you an error. So you put in a string. The way you pass a string is actually do that, and then you write something here. That is a string. You see in blue, right? Like a link. So that is a string. Unlike if you do that, that is a number, an integer. So this one will process that information. And then public void, this is another method, scanner int. This will ask the student or the user to enter the name, and the name will be captured in this variable by using string m.nextLine. So where is this string m.nextLine? String name. All right, so compared to string name, string aim, the next line is right here, the scanner from the scanner class. All right, and then this will basically just ask users to system enter student grade point, and then the grade point will be stored into this, and then it will ask a user to enter a student ID number, put in there, and then go on. Going back into our module here, so we will use um, the constructor. For, the listing is going to new listing. It allowed me to instantiate the listing without passing in any perimeters because I had two constructors. I have two constructors in a listing class. Where did I end in here? And then here is keeps track of the student. This is the constructor of this class. As you see here, keeps track of student info, and keeps track of student info constructor. That means it will be executed first when this class is being called by another class. So list.program name. I'm accessing this listing class because here it has a name of list. It's an object. It's a child of the listing class. So list.program programmer name. If you go back here, I have a method called programmer name. Programmer name. So public void programmer name. String is just a string that shows my name, assignment number, blah 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 blah. That will be printed on the screen. So I'm calling that first, and then this number here will be used to calculate the average number of grades. So system.outprint out.print a lane. A lane just means print a line. Enter the initial number of students. So it will ask the user to enter the number of students. Number of students is equal to scan int.nextInt. Where am I getting the scan int from? It's right here, scan int. That's the reason why I say I had a problem. It couldn't capture the scanner class couldn't capture two type of data at the same time. So I instantiated two objects from the same class. All right. So where did I end? Here. Okay, it will ask initial data set. So initial data set is going to scan in the next line. So whatever that you put on the keyboard will be stored in here. And then this code will prompt the user a number of times of data set and insert the node list into single linked list. So for int I is equal to 0, I is less than initial data set, and then I plus plus. The for loop. Explain this. So for int I is equal to 0, I is less than initial data set, I plus plus. Listing list is equal to new list. So for every loop, this one has a special process that it does. It goes through I is equal to 0. We've shown the type of data that will be stored into I is an integer 0, and then I is less than initial data set. So what is the initial data set? Initial data set is right here, that it will come from a user. Remember, it will ask you to say enter the initial data set of number of students. So if you put 7, this will actually loop through 7 times. It will say 1, okay. It will say I is equal to 0, and then it will ask itself, is I less than initial data set? If the initial data set is 7, and then it will go I plus plus. It will go to I is equal to 1, and then it sounds so boring explaining this. So now I will be equal to 1, and then it will ask itself, is I less than initial data set? Remember, initial data set is 7. Yes, the result is true, and then it will go on to the next level. So I will be 2 until it will loop until I is equal to 7, and they say is I less than initial data set 7. No, so it's not less than that. It will end. So for every number of initial data set you put, the listing list is equal to new listing. It will instantiate or it will make an object from this listing class, and then list.input. So for every number of dataset that you put in there, it will ask you. If you come in listing here, we have a method called listing.inputs right here. Okay, scanner to scanner in, and then system.open, enter a name. So for everyone, all right, so for every number, this folder will ask you to put in the name of that student, grade point, address, grade point, blah, 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 and all those nice stuff that are described in the listing.java. And then linked.insert. This is another, whoa, I didn't see that. So this is another method, described, what should I say? This is another method implemented in a, if we go see linked, if we go linked up here, linked is singly linked list linked. So linked is an object from a singly linked list from here. So again, so this will actually insert into the single linked list. The good stuff. All right, I feel like I've gone so far, and we still have a lot to go through. Again, this is my second time trying to make a video. All right, hit me up. Leave me a message in the description. Oh, no. Leave me a message in the comment section so I know if there's anything that I should cover in my next video.